A bet. Harry lost me to his twin brother. I pretended I knew nothing and spent a wild night with his brother. The next day, blushing, I asked Harry to buy me some ointment. Where does it hurt? He frowned, his voice cold and deep. I mumbled softly, you were too rough last night. You hurt me. Harry was clearly stunned. But I stepped closer, hugged him gently, and cooed sweetly on purpose. But you were so different last night, not like before. I loved it. I fold. Julia is yours tonight. Harry loosened his tie, leaned back, and sprawled lazily on the sofa. Opposite him sat Thomas, his face half hidden in shadow. His voice was heavy. You willing to part with her? Harry grinned recklessly. It's rare to see you look twice at a woman, brother. Since you like her, of course, I have to make the sacrifice. Thomas didn't reply, so Harry spoke again. But she's been with me for a year. If you find her used. Thomas suddenly stood up, casually grabbing his jacket. No need. She'll do. Harry seemed to choke on his words for a moment. But he quickly grinned flirtatiously again. All right then. Enjoy yourself tonight, brother. Thomas adjusted his glasses with a slight nod and strode out of the private room. The moment he left, the room erupted. Harry, are you serious? You chased her for 3 whole months, acting all humble. It hasn't even been a year, and you're already tired of her? Harry picked up his wine glass. A bet's a bet. You lose, you pay. Besides, she's just a woman. I thought Julia was different to you. Harry took a sip of wine, a lax smile on his face. She was different at first. Pretty aloof, hard to get. But now? She's no different from any other woman. Doesn't she act just like a well-behaved puppy around me? Hey, Harry, how about you let me have a turn with her next time? Harry's face suddenly turned cold, and he slammed his glass down. The guy who spoke shut up, looking sheepish. Someone else asked, but Harry, what if Thomas actually touches her? What will you do? He won't. My brother isn't into women. He's a crazy neat freak. You can't be sure. Last time Julia wore that skirt showing off her legs, he definitely stared a few times. Harry sneered. He just hates women who flaunt themselves like that. Bet on it, bet on it. Harry, you wanna bet? Harry scoffed. Don't you all forget. Julia is head over heels in love with me. She'd probably rather bash her head against a wall than let another man touch her. If you really want to bet, be careful you don't lose everything you own. Harry got up and left. A young, beautiful girl was already waiting outside the door. She giggled and rushed towards him when she saw him. Feeling the alcohol buzz, he pushed her against the wall and kissed her hard. I pressed myself lightly against the back of the door and slowly turned around. When I drink, I usually sleep very soundly. That's why Harry spoke so freely. It was just a coincidence. This time, I suddenly woke up from a nightmare. And happened to overhear their conversation. In that instant, my Cinderella fantasy shattered completely. But I didn't push the door open and go in. I didn't cry or start a huge fight with him. If he could so blatantly gamble me away to another man, it meant that in his heart, I was worth nothing. If I made a scene and embarrassed him, these wealthy, powerful guys, crushing me would be as easy as crushing an ant. Numbly, I went back to the bed and lay down again. Even under the covers, I was shivering uncontrollably. Until the door to the room was pushed open. I heard a man's footsteps approaching the bed. Along with them came a faint, cool scent of pine wood. Unfamiliar. A scent Harry never wore. I secretly clenched my fists and squeezed my eyes shut. The blanket over me was gently lifted. Then, I was lifted into someone's arms. Julia, let's go home to sleep. The man's voice was slightly deeper than Harry's, very alluring. I pretended I knew nothing. I opened my eyes and wrapped my arms around him, cooing, "Harry, what took you so long?" His body tensed noticeably. When he spoke again, his voice was even deeper. "Have you been waiting long? My head hurts. You'll feel better after some hangover soup." He carried me out, his arms strong and steady. His steps were firm. I buried my face in his chest, letting the cool, clean scent fill my nostrils. "You smell so good tonight." "Do I?" "Better than any cologne you've worn before." "Do you like it?" "I love it." His steps paused for a moment. In the long corridor. The lights were dim, the hallway long empty. He suddenly lowered his head, and a very light kiss landed on the corner of my lips. "Good, as long as you like it." 2 days ago was the first time I met Thomas. It was also the day I learned Harry had a twin brother. He had been abroad for years and rarely came back. Harry seemed somewhat afraid of this older brother. He never mentioned him. That whole evening, Thomas barely glanced at me. He only said one thing to me the entire time. "Miss Julia, you have a beautiful name." I didn't know why he would agree to such an absurd bet tonight. But I sensed keenly. If I wanted to escape this game of the rich and powerful unscathed, perhaps Thomas was my only way out. Subconsciously, from the first moment I saw him, I felt he and Harry were two different kinds of people. I had just stepped out of the bathroom when Thomas wrapped his arms around my waist from behind. When he lowered his head to kiss me, I couldn't help but giggle. "Why are you in such a hurry tonight, Harry?" The kiss on my lips paused. "How about a different name?" "Then what do you want me to call you?" "Remember what you usually call me?" "Your name, oh right, I've also called you hubby." The paused kiss gradually grew heated again. "Then, call me brother tonight." "You've never called me that before." "Brother?" I opened my eyes in surprise. But the next moment, I was completely devoured by a searing, aggressively possessive kiss. Thomas pressed me onto the bed. Only a dim night light was on in the room. I reached up to touch his face, his eyes. He turned his head slightly, letting my fingers trace his features. As my fingertips trailed down, Thomas's robe lay discarded and tangled by the bed, entwined with my pale pink nightgown. He leaned down, his strong, large hands gripping my waist. "Julia." I opened my eyes, dazed, and saw his sexy, slightly prominent Adam's apple bob intensely. The next second, he thrust down suddenly. I whimpered, tears already welling in my eyes. Before the tears could fall, they were kissed away by his astonishingly hot lips and tongue. "Call me that again." A deep, forceful thrust shattered my voice. I looked at him, aggrieved, fresh tears spilling. "Forgot what to call me?" He looked down at me. I sobbed, my fingertips digging into the firm muscles of his forearm. The next second, the world spun. My long hair cascaded down. The ends brushed against his abs, sending a heart-stopping shiver through me. Thomas held my waist, the desire in his eyes gradually losing control. "Julia, don't stop." I whimpered again. When I opened my eyes, it was already bright daylight outside. My whole body felt like it had been run over, every inch ached. I was alone in the room. Thomas had left at some point. I forced myself to sit up and get out of bed. I walked to the window. The curtains opened automatically, and I immediately saw Harry in the garden below. My gaze flickered instinctively. My fingers, hanging by my sides, unknowingly clenched tight. But I quickly composed myself. I showered, changed into a short, off-the-shoulder dress, and deliberately didn't cover the marks on my neck and chest. When Harry came in, he saw me struggling a bit as I walked down the stairs. He stopped in his tracks. "What's wrong with you?" I bit my lip and glanced at the maids downstairs. I didn't say anything. Not until I was downstairs, standing next to Harry. I immediately noticed the hickey on his neck. My gaze paused for a microsecond, then quickly moved on. Still pretending I hadn't noticed anything. I tugged lightly at his sleeve, my cheeks burning hot. Will you go buy me some ointment? Where are you uncomfortable? Harry frowned suddenly, his voice abruptly turning cold and deep. I bit my lip again, my voice as soft as a mosquito's buzz. You were too rough last night. I only noticed when I showered this morning. I'm bleeding, it hurts so much. Harry was clearly stunned. He suddenly grabbed my shoulders. What did you say? What's bleeding? I looked at him pitifully. It's just, last night, you were too rough. I thought I was going to die from the pain. As I spoke, I raised my hands and gently hugged him. I tilted my face up to his, flushed and full of passion. My smile was shy yet sweet. But you were so different last night, not like before. So amazing. Harry, I loved it so much. Harry stared at me, his face ashen. But I pretended to be oblivious, still chattering happily, you were just too bad. I cried, I even begged you, but you wouldn't stop. Harry clenched his jaw tightly. His eyes, when he looked at me, were filled with incredibly complex emotions. After a long moment, he abruptly released me, pushing me away. I'll go get you the ointment. You wait here at home. I watched him turn and hurry away. Only then did the smile on my face slowly fade. I asked the kitchen to prepare my favorite foods. Halfway through my meal, I heard a car approaching outside. I put down my knife and fork and walked to the French windows. I saw Thomas getting out of the car. Actually, the two of them weren't that hard to tell apart. Thomas was slightly taller than Harry. His build was also more upright and solid. But he wasn't wearing glasses. He was wearing a black business suit similar in style to Harry's. At first glance from behind, they still looked very much alike. I pushed open the door and walked out. When Thomas looked over, a sweet, shy smile appeared on my face. I walked towards him, my steps a little unsteady. Harry, where's my medicine? Thomas looked down at me. He didn't deny it immediately. I hugged his arm and started patting his pockets. Where did you hide the ointment? When I reached his trouser pocket, he suddenly grabbed my hand. What ointment? He asked, his voice a little hoarse. I stomped my foot. You're still pretending. Didn't I tell you? You hurt me last night. Thomas didn't answer. Only the Adam's apple, hidden by the meticulously buttoned-up shirt collar, rolled violently again. He seemed somewhat agitated, his brow furrowing slightly. He then reached up and loosened his tie. Only then did he look down at me again. I just remembered, I need to see the injury to tell the doctor what kind of ointment you need. Harry. My face instantly turned beet red. Thomas's gaze swept over my neck, my chest. Over those crimson love bites, inch by inch. It was like a fire was burning in his eyes. That fire seemed to be scorching me too. It almost made me lose my composure. What are you shy about? Julia? It's not like I haven't seen it before. I'm not talking to you anymore. I shot him an angry glare and turned to leave. But Thomas gripped my wrist tightly. All right, I'll stop teasing you. He pulled me into his arms, my back pressed against his solid chest. A perfect fit. He lowered his head, his chin brushing against the hair by my ear, his breath scalding hot. He seemed to want to kiss me, and I instinctively closed my eyes. But just then, the sound of another car arrived. Thomas and I both turned our heads. We saw a black car speeding towards us. Before it even came to a complete stop, the door was pushed open from the inside. Harry got out, staring at Thomas and me locked in a tight embrace. He stood motionless, his face cold, as if frosted over. My eyes flew open. I looked at Thomas in front of me, somewhat stunned. Brother, Julia, what are you two doing? Harry walked over slowly. He was carrying a paper bag in one hand. And there was even a faint smile on his face. Be brother? I looked terrified, frantically pushing Thomas away. Harry, I mistook him for you. Big brother wasn't wearing his glasses today, I thought he was you. By the end, there was a sob in my voice. Even my eyes were red. I stood there awkwardly, my face full of panic and unease. Harry pulled me behind him and shot Thomas a harsh glare. Julia, you're so dumb, you can't even recognize your own man. I'm sorry. I choked back a sob and bit my lip, peeking at Thomas. Brother, I'm so sorry about just now, I really thought you were someone else. Thomas glanced at me. It's not your fault. Twins often get mistaken for each other. Then, he looked at Harry. His voice was light, yet carried a hidden threat. Harry, you shouldn't have been so harsh with her just now. Harry put on his usual careless smile. It's her fault for being dumb. She can't even recognize the man she's slept next to for a year. She's only met me once. It's normal for her to get us mixed up. Harry raised an eyebrow. Fine, I'll apologize to her. Thomas said nothing more and turned to leave. Harry stood in place for a few seconds. Then he slowly turned around. He dangled the paper bag in his hand, his gaze calm as it rested on my face. Back to the room. Let me see where you're hurt. I'll put the ointment on for you. I dug my nails into my palms. If I wasn't mistaken, Harry must have been with another woman last night. And now he wanted to touch me. A wave of nausea washed over me, and I felt sick to my stomach. But I forced it down. I followed Harry back to the room. He washed his hands and looked down at me, his gaze icy. Get undressed. Lie down over there yourself. I shivered slightly, looking at him with feigned confusion and hurt. Harry, why are you being so mean to me today? This past year together, maybe it was to deceive me. Or maybe there was a tiny bit of sincerity. Harry had always been relatively gentle with me. This was the first time he'd spoken to me so coldly. Are you still angry that I mistook our older brother for you? No. Harry cut me off abruptly. You're overthinking it. I'm just worried about your injury. Is it still bleeding? Let me see. His voice became gentle again, just like before. But I only felt an inexplicable fear. Actually, when Harry first pursued me, I kept refusing him. I finally agreed because I was scared. Someone had deliberately told me. Harry had another girlfriend before. A dancer, very aloof. Harry chased her for a long time before he finally won her over. That girl thought she was the true love who had made the prodigal son return. After they got together, she became quite spoiled and arrogant. Harry probably really liked her at first. So he indulged her little tantrums. But in less than 6 months, he must have gotten tired of her. He quickly found a new target. When that girl found out, she caused a massive scene. She even smashed Harry's car, making him lose face in front of his friends. Harry didn't say anything at the time. But a few days later, word got out that the girl had accidentally fallen off the stage during dance practice. She survived, but she was a quadriplegic, her life ruined. The person who told me this had also subtly warned me at the time. Julia, you better be careful. Don't really piss him off. I heard he had someone look into your family. People like Harry, we couldn't afford to offend him even if we had 10 lives. I was afraid of dying, even more afraid of a life worse than death. So I accepted his advances. After we got together, I was always careful and cautious. For a whole year, Harry was very good to me, and you could even say he was devoted. So much so that occasionally, I too would have unrealistic dreams. Occasionally, I'd lose my clarity. But I never imagined that lowering myself to such a humble position would result in him using me as a bargaining chip, casually losing me to another man. My mind was a mess. Harry pressed me down to sit. He squatted in front of me. He looked down, gently took my slender calf, and spread my legs. You must have been seducing me last night, otherwise why would I have been so rough? Harry chuckled, glancing up at me. Then he slowly lifted my skirt. I turned my face away, biting my lip hard, fighting back the churning nausea and disgust in my stomach. Just as he was about to pull down the last thin layer of fabric, there was a sudden knock on the door. "Harry, come to the study with me for a moment." Thomas's voice sounded from outside the door, carrying a heavy sense of authority and a suppressed hint of anger. Harry seemed to curse under his breath, but he still stood up immediately. He handed me the ointment. "Put this on yourself. I'm going to the study." I took the ointment and watched him leave the room. Only then did I let out a heavy sigh, as if I'd been granted a pardon. The phone on the side vibrated. I came to my senses and picked it up. It was a text from an unknown number. "This is Thomas. Save my number." I stared at the small words on the screen. It took a while before I replied, "Okay, brother." Thomas didn't reply again. Harry didn't come back to the room either. He called me when he drove off. Said something came up with a branch office in H City, and he had to go on a business trip for a few days. I could hear the anxiety in his voice. It seemed like a big deal. It gave me a chance to breathe for a bit. The next morning, I was getting ready to go back to school. As soon as I got downstairs, I ran into Thomas again. This time he was wearing glasses. The cold light reflecting off the lenses made him look exceptionally chilly. A completely different person from the one who had kissed me so tenderly that night. Just like the first time I saw him. I greeted him obediently and meekly, "Good morning, brother." Thomas nodded slightly. "Going back to school?" "Yeah. It's on my way. I'll give you a ride." I wanted to refuse, but Thomas added, "Harry's not here. As his older brother, it's my duty to take care of you. Let's eat first." I hastily ate a few bites and put down my chopsticks. Thomas didn't say anything and turned to walk out. I slung my bag over my shoulder and followed him out with my head down. As the car door closed, Thomas reached out and pressed the button for the partition. "Brother?" I panicked a little. Thomas took off his glasses and put them in the storage compartment. Only then did he turn to look at me. "How's the injury?" My face instantly flushed bright red. It's better." He nodded, then took out a tube of ointment and handed it to me. "If it's healed, use this." I looked at him, stunned, and waved my hands frantically. No need, brother. Harry already put medicine on it for me." Thomas's face was expressionless. But it inexplicably made me more and more scared. "Take it. This one works better." "Really, I don't need it." I shook my head hard, on the verge of tears. Harry was already a little mad that I mistook you for him. "If I take your ointment too, he'll definitely yell at me again if he finds out." Thomas stared at me intently, then slowly lowered his hand. "You care about Harry that much?" "Yeah, he's my first boyfriend." I bit my lip, an undeniable sweetness in my eyes. "He's always been really good to me. I really love him." Thomas seemed to let out a low chuckle. Or maybe I misheard. He didn't look at me anymore. He leaned back against the car seat, his gaze fixed calmly ahead. For the rest of the journey, he didn't say another word to me. When I got out of the car, I thanked him quietly. "Brother, thank you for today. I'll head to school now." Thomas nodded very faintly and grunted in acknowledgement. I clutched the straps of my backpack as I opened the door to get out. But then Thomas suddenly called out to me. "Julia." I instinctively turned back and met his clear, handsome gaze. "This ointment is the best for scars. Take it and put it on the scar on your calf." "Brother, how did you know I have a scar on my calf?" But Thomas didn't answer. He just placed the ointment in my hand. I stood stunned for a moment before pushing the door open and getting out. The car quickly sped off. I stood there for a while. Then I took out my phone to reply to Harry's text. "I miss you too. Are you really not coming back for another 10 days?" Around that, but I'll finish up here as soon as I can and come back. Okay, I'll wait for you at home then. Time moved slowly. The 10 days Harry was away were surprisingly peaceful and quiet. Thomas didn't contact me again. What happened that night felt like an absurd dream. Sometimes I even wondered. Was it really Thomas that night? A man so lofty and unattainable. Why would he play such a cruel game with his own younger brother? Friday afternoon, Harry called to say he was returning to the capital tonight. He told me to wait for him at home. I packed my things and called a cab back to the estate. After showering, I lay on the sofa scrolling through my phone, waiting for Harry. But I ended up falling asleep. I don't know how long I slept, but the sound of a door opening startled me awake. Sleepily, I sat up and saw a tall figure walking towards me, silhouetted against the light. Following him, invading my senses, was the cool pine wood scent from Thomas that night. My heart suddenly clenched. He came closer, not wearing glasses. Exactly like that night. I reached out my hands to him, asking for a hug. And the moment Thomas leaned down and hugged me, I tilted my face up, kissed his chin, and complained softly, like a spoiled child. What took you so long to come back? I waited so long I fell asleep. Thomas's breath seemed to catch. The arms holding me suddenly tightened. So tight, I couldn't help but hiss. I nuzzled his neck and bit him lightly. You're hurting me again. I only just recovered. You're not allowed to bully me again tonight, Harry. What did you call me? Thomas gripped my chin. I couldn't fight his strength, so I had to turn my face to meet his. His scalding breath brushed against my nose, very hot. My eyelashes fluttered, and my soft lips were captured. Initially, the kiss was gentle, but gradually, it became a tempest. Did you miss me? His fingers on my jaw tightened slightly, forcing me to part my lips slightly, so he could kiss me deeper. Yes. I answered, my voice muffled. Thomas pressed further. Missed who? Say it clearly. Missed Harry. My lips were suddenly bitten, hard. Tears streamed down my face from the pain. I glared at him, aggrieved. But before the name Harry could escape my lips, a deeper, more wanton kiss brutally silenced me. He gave me no room to breathe, nor any chance to resist. When I was completely overpowered and possessed by him, only then did he cup my face, using his thumbs to wipe away the physiological tears from the corners of my eyes. Julia, I'll ask you one more time. What do you call me? I couldn't help but sob. Until finally, I was floating on the highest cloud. Thomas panted heavily in my ear. Do you like it when I treat you like this? I was crying too hard to speak, wanting to shake my head, but he kissed me until I couldn't move. I could only whimper and nod. Only then did Thomas's kisses gradually soften. Then from now on, I'll treat you like this every day, okay? I'll get hurt. It hurts a lot like that. You were never this rough with me before. Thomas pressed me against his chest. Did I hurt you tonight? I instinctively shook my head. Although he was even rougher and fiercer than that night. This time, it really didn't hurt at all. Then, did you enjoy it? I suddenly bit my lip, my cheek starting to burn. The body doesn't lie. I couldn't deny that Thomas gave me a pleasure Harry never had. Maybe it was the thrill of the forbidden that was more captivating, more addicting. Or maybe it was because I never really liked Harry that much to begin with. And now, I feared and loathed him even more. I slowly lifted my face in his embrace, and answered in a very small voice, it was good. In Thomas's satiated eyes, the flames of desire suddenly reignited. Julia. He flipped me over and pressed me onto the bed again. Pressing against me, our fingers tightly interlaced. From now on, only do this with me, okay? I burst out laughing. What are you talking about? Of course, it's only with you, Harry. Don't call me by my name. Thomas's voice suddenly deepened. I widened my eyes in surprise. What's gotten into you? You're being so weird. But Thomas released my hands and gently covered my eyes. Julia, I really like it when you call me brother. Every time you call me brother, I get especially excited. From now on, always call me that. I lifted my hand, wanting to remove his hand from my eyes. But I touched the old scar on the ball of his thumb. In that instant, something flashed through my mind. But I couldn't grasp it. After a long while, I finally answered quietly, okay. Thomas gave the staff at the estate a vacation. He openly ate meals with me and walked with me in the garden. Nights were filled with insatiable entanglement. On the third night, he drove me to the riverside. We ate fresh river fish on a boat. I drank a lot of fruit wine. On the way back, I was too drunk to walk straight. Thomas carried me on his back from the boat. His fingers brushed against the old scar on my calf. He asked naturally, "How did you injure your leg so badly?" I lay on his back, eyes closed, murmuring drunkenly. Met a bad kid when I was little. That guy was terrible, super rich family. All the other kids flocked around him, trying to please him. But not me. The more I ignored him, the more he pestered me. But I wasn't idle like a rich kid like him. I had to help my parents at their food stall, take care of my little brother, wash diapers, feed him. He annoyed me so much, I got into a fight with him. I was small then, of course I couldn't beat a boy. He pushed me down, and I hit my leg on a flower bed, bled a lot. But he didn't get off easy either. I grabbed his hand and bit him hard. Bit him really deep. My mouth was full of blood at the time. He had no backbone at all, just wailed and cried. I started laughing as I spoke. Actually, he wasn't bad, just a bit spoiled. Later, he even brought me medicine and coaxed me, saying my scar was petal-shaped and looked pretty. Only then did Thomas ask softly. And then what happened? Don't remember. I think he left soon after. His parents probably took him home. I had endless chores back then, how could I remember these things? After talking so much, I felt even dizzier. Lying on Thomas's back, I was about to fall asleep. Julia. I heard him say my name. He seemed to say something else after that. But I didn't hear it. The day Harry truly returned. Thomas arranged a family dinner. I deliberately asked Thomas. Brother, Harry's been back for days. Why are you only arranging a family dinner today? Thomas looked at me then, and for a long time, he didn't speak. His eyes were as deep as a bottomless pool. Seemingly unfathomable, as if they could swallow a person whole. I shrank back and ran off to find Harry. I didn't look back. But I could always feel Thomas's gaze, as if it were constantly following me. At the family dinner that night, Harry didn't seem to be in a good mood. Perhaps the business trip hadn't gone too smoothly. When he was on his third drink, I gently pressed his glass down. Brother, drink less. Your stomach isn't good. Before the words had even fully left my mouth, two pairs of eyes suddenly landed on my face. Thomas always had impeccable manners. Even at a family dinner, he wore a formal suit and sat upright. But at this moment, his knife and fork suddenly clattered against the porcelain plate unbecomingly. As the clink sounded, he looked up at me. Harry also frowned. What did you call me? My eyes widened slightly, a mix of shyness and sweetness in them. Brother, what's wrong? Julia. Harry suddenly stood up and flipped the plate in front of him. I yelped and covered my head, tears already welling in my eyes. Harry. Who are you calling brother? What the hell have you been doing behind my back? He grabbed my collar, almost lifting me off my feet. I trembled all over in fear. You said it yourself, you like it when I call you that. You're full of SHT. Harry's eyes were bloodshot, glaring at me as if they would pop. When did I ever say? His voice stopped abruptly. The veins on the back of the hand gripping my collar stood out sharply. My tears kept falling, and I sobbed pitifully. You clearly said it yourself, that you liked me calling you brother. You even asked me to call you that recently. Harry's bloodshot eyes suddenly shot towards Thomas, who was sitting opposite him. And the man who had been sitting as still as a mountain also slowly put down his knife and fork at this moment. He stood up, his imposing presence sending shivers down one's spine. My crying suddenly quieted. An indescribable, bone-chilling fear swept through my entire body. Perhaps Thomas's outward appearance had deceived me. He was actually more terrifying than Harry. I began to tremble uncontrollably. Thomas's gaze fell on me, only for a brief 2 seconds. But my entire back was drenched in sweat. Don't bully a girl. He raised his hand, gripped Harry's wrist, and made him let go. Come upstairs with me. We need to talk. Harry clenched his jaw tightly. After a long moment, he finally let out a scornful laugh. He stared at me with bloodshot eyes for a long time before turning and going upstairs. When the study door closed, I received a text message on my phone. It was from Thomas. Only 4 words. Don't be afraid. I'm here. I stared at those 4 words. I wiped away my tears and slowly sat down in the chair. Then I covered my face and laughed self-mockingly. Did Thomas think I didn't know it all? Or did he think I wouldn't remember? At the banquet on the day he returned to the country, someone congratulated him on his upcoming engagement. He didn't deny it. And a man who was about to be engaged, playing such a game with his own twin brother, was probably just seeking one last thrill before marriage. Or, satisfying some dark, twisted desires hidden beneath his perfect facade. But how innocent was I in all this? Why should I be the plaything of these 2 brothers? Brother, don't you think you've gone too far? Harry stared at the man before him. Same mother, twins. Yet, since childhood, he had been inferior to him in every way. Because of Thomas's extraordinary excellence, he had won the affection and favor of all the elders in the family. Naturally, he inherited the rights when he grew up. And he could only be a profligate playboy. Countless people envied him, but they didn't know. Many times, he was jealous of Thomas, hated Thomas. Yet, because of the shadow cast over him since childhood, he feared him to his core. This contradictory psychology tormented him, making it hard to eat or sleep. If I remember correctly, you lost her to me that night. But you clearly don't go near women, you clearly have no interest in women at all. I thought you wouldn't touch her, that you'd find her dirty. Harry refused to admit it. That night he deliberately lost Julia to him. It was more out of a desire to humiliate Thomas. A woman he had grown tired of, yet Thomas secretly coveted her. Did he think he couldn't see it? The first time Thomas saw Julia, his eyes changed. They had been brothers for over 20 years. This was the first time he had seen Thomas's gaze fixated on a woman. He even looked at Julia's legs twice. So that absurd idea was born in him. Using a girlfriend he was starting to get bored with. To humiliate that elder brother who always stood above him, trampling on his head. It would be thrilling, so satisfying, right? But he never imagined that Thomas, a man with an insanely severe obsession with cleanliness, would actually touch Julia. And he certainly never expected that the night Thomas took Julia away, he would be so distraught, unable to sleep the entire night. The girl he had taken away. Originally, he was determined that something would happen with her that night. But in the end, he still pushed her away. At that time, his mind was consumed with thoughts. Was Thomas, like him at that moment, kissing and caressing Julia? And how would Julia react? Could she tell it wasn't him? Would she also, like she did beneath him, submit obediently and sweetly? He was tormented by that thought, restless and agitated. He returned to the estate at dawn. When the servant told him that Thomas had left at 6 o'clock as usual, he truly breathed a huge sigh of relief. But when he saw Julia come downstairs covered in hickeys, when she shyly and sweetly coquetted with him, complaining that he had been too rough and hurt her, in that instant, he genuinely felt like killing someone. He had had many women. When they separated or when he casually gave them away, he never felt the slightest bit of softness or reluctance. He thought Julia would be the same. But at that moment, he suddenly realized. She was different. From the very beginning, Julia was different from the others. He had forgotten. Julia was the only girl he had seriously pursued after being smitten at first sight. He had greatly underestimated her importance in his heart. Find her dirty? Thomas suddenly rose and walked over to Harry. This seemed to be the first time today he had shown such a significant emotional fluctuation. The first time he, a man of few words, had said so much. I don't know why you would say that about your own girlfriend. And I don't agree that a girl who has had a boyfriend and sexual experience is dirty. He reached out and grabbed Harry's lapel. With just a slight exertion of force, he slammed him hard against the wall. Say that about her again, just try it. His tone was still calm, but those bottomless eyes. Beneath the gloom, they were filled with ferocity. Harry didn't struggle, just looked at his twin brother before him. Boundless, complex emotions gradually welled up in his eyes. It was a mixture of resentment and hatred, having been suppressed by his own flesh and blood brother for over 20 years. Thomas, you deliberately set me up. That night, you did it on purpose, deliberately luring me into a bet with you. You like her, you wanted to snatch her from me. If you were truly sincere with her, then no one could snatch her away. So, I'll say it one last time, Harry. You gave me the opportunity. It was you who delivered her into my hands. Harry suddenly burst out laughing. So what? Do you think she'll willingly be with you? She's poor, from a bad background, but she's incredibly stubborn at heart and ridiculously aloof. If she knew you pretended to be me to play with her, what do you think she'd do? She'd hate me to death, and she'd hate you to death too. So what? If I hadn't accepted your bet that night, hadn't taken her away, would you have lost her to a third person? I didn't. You did. Thomas was rarely so stern. Others may not know, but you know it in your heart. You were done playing, you were tired of her. There was a younger, prettier girl waiting outside for you to spend the night with. Harry, tell me yourself, isn't that true? Harry clenched his jaw tightly, panting heavily. Yet, he couldn't utter a single word of rebuttal. Thomas abruptly released his grip, looking down at his twin brother. You should first think about how you're going to get through this current crisis. If you can't come up with a convincing reason for what happened in H City, you can forget about staying in the country. It was you again? Harry, slow on the uptake, finally realized. What a coincidence that just as Thomas returned, several branch companies under his management ran into trouble. He really was meticulous and planned every step. For Julia, for those nights of stolen pleasure. He'd even turn against his own brother, disregarding the family's interests. So what if it was me? If you had any skill or ability, you wouldn't be constrained by others in every matter. Thomas casually lit a cigarette. After half a cigarette, he had already returned to his usual calm demeanor. Are you going to tell her yourself, or should I? Why? Harry's eyes were bloodshot. Why have you had to crush me in everything since we were kids? You were doing fine abroad, why did you suddenly come back? So many women like you even have a top socialite fiancé. Why do you have to fight me for Julia? Thomas looked down and stubbed out the cigarette. Crushing you since childhood was just a matter of who was more capable. As for fighting you over her? Thomas looked at him coldly, as if looking at insignificant trash on the roadside. Do you think I'd be interested in anything you possess? Then what about Julia? Just as Thomas was about to answer, the study door was suddenly thrown open. I stood numbly outside the study door. My whole body trembled like a leaf in the wind. My face was frighteningly pale, streaked with tears. In my sophomore year, a classmate dragged me into joining the drama club. I learned a little bit about acting. Now, it was all coming in handy. Julia. Thomas's brow furrowed instantly. When he spoke, his breath seemed to catch for a beat. I stared at him blankly. Then I slowly shifted my gaze to Harry's face. I stared at him intently, just letting the tears flow straight down. A man's guilt towards a woman is an all-powerful weapon. Opportunities can be lost in an instant. And right now, this was the perfect moment. Harry. I whispered his name softly. Julia. He instinctively stepped forward, but I sharply retreated a step. Don't come near me. Julia, listen to my explanation. Harry, you were my first man, my first love. You know how much I care about you, how much I love you. With each sentence, I slowly backed away. I can accept that your feelings changed, that you don't like me anymore. But I can't accept you giving me away. This past year with you, I was so happy, so blissful. No one has ever treated me as well as you did. But it turns out I was just dreaming. Julia, it's not like that, listen to me, I can explain. I shook my head gently, tears rolling down in a timely manner. Harry, my dream is over. I will never dream again. As the last word fell, I suddenly turned and ran towards the second-floor terrace. Below the terrace was a small garden. The gardener had just tilled the soil yesterday. I had calculated the distance from the second floor to the ground. If I jumped, landing on the soft soil, I would only sustain minor injuries. But the visual impact of jumping to seek death would be shocking. And I gambled correctly. When Thomas and Harry chased after me, I jumped from the window decisively. Without a trace of hesitation. As if I was determined to die. I heard them shouting my name loudly. I didn't know whose voice it was. It sounded somewhat heart-wrenching. In the brief moment of rapid descent, I smiled mockingly. The entire estate was in chaos. Thomas, so aloof and unattainable, who never appeared in public with a single wrinkle on his shirt. Now, his impeccably ironed trousers were stained with mud, yet he paid no heed. He reached out, wanting to hold me, but dared not touch me. I lay curled up on the muddy ground, my foot broken at a twisted angle, swollen frighteningly. Julia, don't be afraid, the ambulance will be here soon. Thomas tried hard to compose himself. But his words still betrayed his anxiety and panic. I lay on the ground, my eyes closed, biting my lip hard. Unwilling to even cry out in pain. Harry seemed terrified by my appearance. He stood to the side, like a clay sculpture. The wail of ambulance sirens sounded in the distance. Quickly approaching. Only then, enduring the intense pain of my broken bone, did I slowly open my eyes. I'm not going to the hospital. Don't save me. I said each word distinctly, my head drenched in sweat. I looked at Harry, my lips bitten and bleeding. He trembled, his eyes bloodshot as he looked at me. I don't want to see you anymore, Harry. Julia. Harry's voice was hoarse as he slowly took a step forward. I immediately averted my gaze. And looked at Thomas. The moment I looked at him, my tears suddenly fell torrentially. I don't want to see you anymore either, Thomas. When there has been physical intimacy between a man and a woman, the man will, more or less, harbor a trace of tenderness for that woman. It was this trace of tenderness I wanted from him. Let's go to the hospital first, Julia. Be good. If you don't agree, I won't go to the hospital. This isn't the time to be willful. Thomas raised a hand to press his throbbing temple. Let the nurses get you on the stretcher, don't move, Julia. But I wouldn't listen. Blood seeped from the broken skin around my fractured leg. That blood slowly trickled over the old scar on my calf, staining that faded flower red. Thomas's pupils constricted violently. In an instant, his entire face seemed to lose all color. Don't move. He stared at me intently, his voice very, very soft. Like a petal falling silently in the dead of night. I promise you. Neither Harry nor I will ever appear before you again. With all my strength, I managed a smile for Thomas. Excruciating pain washed over me again. As I lost consciousness, I said my last words to him. Brother, I'll only trust you this once. That day at the estate, Thomas made that promise in front of many people. So, during my days in the hospital, neither he nor Harry appeared even once. When I was discharged after recovering, Thomas's secretary came to see me. Miss Julia, Thomas said, if you have any requests, please don't hesitate to ask. As long as he can do it. I looked calmly at the polite, gentle secretary before me and spoke peacefully. I want a sum of money, and I also want to go abroad to continue my studies. My family background is very poor. I have 2 older sisters and a younger brother. All my parents' love and attention were given to their only son. My 2 sisters dropped out of school early to work, and their lives aren't very good. I want to give them some money, at least to make their lives a little better. Thomas has already arranged for the money. As for studying abroad, you can choose whichever country or university you wish. I nodded lightly. Please thank him for me. The secretary stood up, then looked at me, hesitating as if he wanted to say more. After a while, he spoke again. Miss Julia, is there anything you'd like to say to him? I lowered my gaze, looking at my thin wrist. As if it could snap with a gentle twist. Just like an ordinary girl like me. In their eyes, I was nothing more than a plaything to be casually exchanged. Thomas might have genuinely liked me. Maybe there was a tiny bit of sincerity. But sincerity, when faced with wealth and interests, is insignificant. I shook my head. Yes. A look of joy immediately appeared on the secretary's face. I looked up and smiled at him. Please tell him that I wish him peace and success for the rest of his life. Miss Julia? The secretary was clearly a bit surprised. Is there nothing else? But I had already lain down. He couldn't stay any longer and had to turn and leave. When I left the hospital, I saw Thomas's car. It was parked not far away, the windows tightly shut. I couldn't see the person inside. But he should have been able to see me. He was a gentleman, however, and kept his promise, not approaching to disturb me. And I didn't look back. Thomas sat motionless in the car, watching her walk further and further away, until she was completely out of sight. The secretary cautiously asked him, Thomas, should we go after her? There's still time. But Thomas waved his hand. No need. Let's go back. The car started and slowly merged into the traffic on the main road. Thomas leaned back against the car seat and closed his eyes. Amidst the slight bumps, he, who hadn't closed his eyes for several days, seemed to have fallen asleep. It was as if he had returned to that night. Harry's bet, he had known about it in advance. That's why he had uncharacteristically attended such an absurd gathering. Uncharacteristically made a bet with this younger brother of his. He couldn't bear to watch her, kept in the dark, being used as a gambling chip. Actually, that night, he hadn't planned on doing anything to her. But she hugged him. She obediently pressed her face against his chest. She said he smelled good. He couldn't resist and lowered his head to kiss her. And she didn't resist at all, even responding. His selfishness and greed gained the upper hand in that instant. He despicably thought, then let him, under Harry's identity, possess her just once. But some things, some people, you can't touch. Once you have the first time, you'll want a second, countless times. He lost control. When he saw Harry being harsh with her. When he heard Harry say he would take her back to the room to check her injuries and apply medicine himself. The last thread of control within him snapped completely. He thought, then let's just fall all the way. Even if in the end, he would be sentenced to death by her. But he never imagined she would use such a resolute way to break off with them completely. She said she never wanted to see him again. Thomas suddenly opened his eyes. He looked down at the old scar on the ball of his thumb. That year when she bit him viciously. She had said the same thing. In my second year of studying in the United States, I ran into one of Harry's former friends on a foreign street. He insisted on taking me out to dinner. During the meal, Harry naturally came up. I heard his older brother was originally going to send him abroad. Somehow, he ended up staying in the country. He's much more mature now, seems to have some ambition for his career too. The friend looked at me tentatively. It seems he hasn't gotten a new girlfriend. Once at a party, someone unintentionally mentioned you, and the look in his eyes then. The friend couldn't help but sigh as he spoke. I just smiled and didn't respond. Actually, I didn't like Harry much at first. Perhaps it was a preconceived bias. I had always been wary of wealthy young men like them. Later, he was really good to me. I was young then, when a golden boy like him humbled himself before you, of course, there were feelings. But before I could be foolish, reality slapped me awake. However, his relationship with his older brother seems quite strained now. My hand, holding the cup, trembled slightly. His older brother was supposed to get engaged this year, I think, but there's been no news. That rumored fiancé of his, on the other hand, got engaged to someone else. I slowly put down my cup and stood up. I have a class. Let's meet up some other time if there's a chance. Julia. My friend stood up to see me out. He couldn't help but ask, is there really no chance for you and Harry? Actually, Harry was a bit ridiculous back then. But as far as I know, you two probably had a misunderstanding. He really didn't get involved with that other girl. I frowned and interrupted him. Can we please not talk about him anymore? All right. Thank you for dinner today. Hey, no need to be so polite with me. Goodbye then. Julia, when are you coming back to visit? Everyone misses you a lot. We'll see. I smiled, waved at him, pulled my coat tighter, and turned to walk into the gentle night breeze. A black car drove past me. My steps faltered for a moment. But the car didn't stop, quickly speeding ahead. I looked down, smiled, and shook my head. And continued walking forward. While waiting for the traffic light. The wind was a bit strong. I raised my hand to tidy my messy hair. As I tucked a strand behind my ear, I suddenly heard someone call my name from behind. Hey, Julia. I instinctively turned around and looked straight into a pair of dark, deep eyes.